So it is that time of year again, and we find ourselves back at Advent. And I, for one, am thrilled. I love Advent. I love this time. I find it so refreshing that the church takes this time and this season. And in my mind, part of the reason why I enjoy this so much was explained by someone who I consider to be one of the greatest 20th century theologians that there is. And in that, I am speaking of C.S. Lewis. Now, there's, more learned colleagues who will go, oh, no, it's von Balthasar, or oh, it's this person or that person. No, it's Lewis. And on top of that, he wrote some wonderful children's books. But Lewis tells me why, at least in part, I enjoy this season so much. Now, he does so in one of his Screwtape letters, which, if you're not familiar with it, is a fictional work that was written from a devil to a younger devil as a mentor manual. So I'm going to have to paraphrase every now and then to change some things up just a bit. And you'll see that when it gets there. But Lewis writes, the horror of the same old thing is one of the most valuable passions we have produced in the human heart. An endless source of heresies in religion, folly in counsel, infidelity in marriage, and inconstancy in friendship. Humans live in time and experience reality successively. To experience much of it, therefore, they must experience many different things. In other words, they must experience change. Most of us love change. We like experiencing new things. We enjoy that. And here, Screwtape, the demon, continues. He says, and since they need change, the enemy, referring to God, being a hedonist at heart, has made change pleasurable to them, just as he has made eating pleasurable. But since he does not wish to make change, any more than eating, an end in and of itself, he has balanced that love of change with a love of permanence. See, God doesn't want us to love change just for change's sake, any more than he wants us to love eating for the sake of eating. These are gifts which he gives us so that we can benefit from them, not so that we can make them idols. We shouldn't eat, just like we shouldn't change just to change. He has contrived to gratify both their tastes, both these tastes together in the very world. He has made by that union of change and permanence which we call rhythm. He gives them the seasons, each season different, yet every year the same, so that spring is always felt as a novelty, yet always the recurrence of an immemorial theme. He gives them in his church a spiritual year. They change from a fast to a feast, but it's the same feast as the year before. See, God gives us a love of permanence because we are made to worship him eternally. And being made to worship him eternally, we have in our very beings a sense of permanence that we long for. But likewise, as creatures who are in the earth and are limited by our bodies, we want to experience everything and we love change. And knowing that we have these two desires wrestling in us, God gave us the rhythm of the year so that we see the seasons, such as they are in Florida, that change and renew, and we see the life around us renew, and we enjoy that. And likewise, we see it in the church year. We see these seasons play out, and we see that as one season comes to an end, another begins, and while it is different each year, it is still the same. And therefore, we are fed by both the new, refreshing character of Advent each year, and yet the permanence of it each year. And in this characteristic, God feeds both of these aspects of us. And this is a glorious thing. We see it in Advent, we see it in Lent, we see it in Easter, we see it in all the seasons of the year. And I love Advent because it is a wonderful antidote to what's going on in the world today.
Amen.
The world today says, it's Christmas, buy stuff. It says, you should be shopping. And if you think you're done shopping, you forgot somebody, go buy more stuff. Watch movies that say they're Christmas movies that have nothing to do with Jesus. You who have known me long enough will know that my biggest pet peeve in this season is things that have a Christmas label on them that have nothing to do with Jesus. If it's a song that doesn't have anything to do with the birth of Christ, it's not a Christmas song, it's a December song. Now, you can go put on your favorite radio stations of playing all this music that started at Thanksgiving and is continuing till the very moment that Christmas is over, December 25th at midnight. And then just question yourself, is it about the birth of Christ? It's not a Christmas song. It's a winter song. We are to be about the business of Christ. And that is what Advent is for. The word Advent means to come. And we are preparing for his coming. Now, if we really were gracious and beneficial to the commercial monstrosity that we see out in the world around us, we would say that they're talking about preparing for his first coming and the baby in the manger and celebrating that. But that's only part of what Advent is about. Because while Advent, later on in the season, is about preparing for Christmas, we're really talking about two different Advents. One is his original Advent, when he arrived as the baby in the manger. But what we talk about for that first part of Advent is his second Advent, his second coming. Which is why if you were paying attention to the readings, there were no babies and mangers and shepherds and angels and announcements and wonderful feel-good sermon topic. That wasn't what we got today. And it's not going to be what we get for a couple more days. What we get now is essentially, hey, Jesus is coming and you better get right with him. Because when he comes back, he might not be in the best of moods.
Yes.
The next 2 weeks, we're going to hear about John the Baptist. And John the Baptist wasn't the warmest and fuzziest of people. He was kind of one of those "you brood of vipers" preachers. And yet people came from miles around to hear him. I should reevaluate my preaching style. But even today, when we hear Jesus preaching, Jesus is saying, look, it's going to be bad. There's going to be signs in the sun and moon and stars, and on the earth distress of nations, perplexity, seas and waves, men's hearts failing them for fear of the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of the heavens will be shaken, and they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Now when these things begin to appear, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. Now these are great news. These are wonderful things to hear. if you're on the right side of history, so to speak. When he says, I want the sheep to go on this side and the goats to go on this side, if you're on the sheep side, this is wonderful. If you're on the goat side, this is terrible news. And he says, look, take heed to yourselves, lest you be weighed down with carousing and drunkenness and the cares of life, and that day come on you unexpectedly. For it will come as a snare on all those who dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch therefore, and pray always, that you may be counted worthy to escape these things that will come to pass, and stand before the Son of Man. Now, a lot of times, Advent and Lent get grouped together as these penitential seasons, these times where we beat our breasts and hold ourselves strictly accountable for all the sins that we have. And Advent isn't quite like that. Advent is a season where we prepare ourselves. Now, to be sure, that involves reflecting on our character, reflecting on our conscience, evaluating those things about ourselves which we need to offer up to the Lord and say, this needs to be cast down. But it also means we need to prepare ourselves. We need to look forward to the hope that is coming and be sure that we're ready for it. We need to watch. We need to be ready. This is a time of preparation because the end is coming. All too often we neglect that. We're comfortable where we are, and that's the problem. We forget that this season will come to an end, and there will come a day of accounting, a day of reckoning, which we all must answer for. In my preparation for this, I was reminded of a story that came on the news recently of an Officer Parmlett. An officer, Aaron Parmlett, was a police officer working in California, and he was sent to help rescue two nurses that were evacuating a hospital that was on fire in California on November 11th. And the reason that he attained the level of notoriety that he did was because he turned on his body camera. He turned on his body camera because he assumed that would be the last record of his last moments alive. Because he was pretty sure he was going to die. Because he had driven his car as far as he could drive, and his car broke down from the heat. So he got out, and he kept looking for these two nurses. Now, if you haven't seen this footage, it's on YouTube. You can look it up. It's amazing footage. It's just like 2 steps back from what hell must be like. You can't see anything. There's fire swirling all around. There's embers blowing all across where he is. And all you see is this body cam footage. And out of the shadows, there emerges one shadow of a person and then another. And these people are overjoyed because they've found someone who's going to rescue them. And they say, are they coming for us? And he doesn't answer. Because in his mind, the answer was no. The answer was, we're going to die. I turned this camera on so in the hopes that somebody might see this and see my last moments. That maybe I'll just die of smoke inhalation, the camera will survive. So as they're walking down what may have been a street, out of the darkness, there are 3 lights that shine. It's barely visible. And he pulled out a flashlight and he started waving that flashlight all around, and these lights turn and start moving very slowly towards them. It was a bulldozer. It was a bulldozer that came towards them, and they were like, we're saved. So these nurses all crawled up into this bulldozer, and the driver says, I've only got room for 2. So the cop put these 2 nurses into this bulldozer, and he followed behind the bulldozer as this bulldozer managed to push its way out of this fire. And all of them made it out alive. Now, in a way, this is what Christ does for us. Because we have no hope of ever rescuing ourselves from the fires of hell. Amen. We're never going to find a way out. We're never going to have someone lead us out. Are you here to rescue me? Nope, I'm just stuck here like everybody else. We're all going to die here. And then, out of the darkness, a light shines. And they're saved. It's an incredibly powerful image. But in this season, we're called to be prepared. And as powerful as an image as that is, it doesn't help us with that. It reminds us of why we need to be prepared, but it doesn't help us to be prepared. But I think about the collect that we read. Give us grace to cast away the works of darkness and put upon us the armor of light. Now in the time of this mortal life, in which your Son, Jesus Christ, came to visit us in great humility, that in the last day when he shall come again in his glorious majesty to judge both the living and the dead, we may rise to the life immortal. Cast off the works of darkness and put upon us the armor of light. In that, I see a soldier preparing for battle. I see someone getting ready for war. And in that, as I began, I am reminded of a line from C.S. Lewis. I am reminded of a line from Mere Christianity, where he says, Christianity believes that the universe is at war, but it does not think the war is between independent powers. It thinks it is a civil war, a rebellion, and that we are living in the part of the universe occupied by the rebel. Enemy-occupied territory. That is what this world is. Christianity is the story of how the rightful king has landed, you may say landed in disguise, and is calling us to take part in a great campaign of sabotage. When you go to the church, you are really listening into the secret wireless from our friends. That is why the enemy is so anxious to prevent you from going. He does it by playing on our conceit, our laziness, and our snobbery. Enemy-occupied territory. We are the saboteurs. We are those who have seen that the rightful king has landed and is reclaiming his territory. It's his, he is planting his flag, and we are there to sabotage the enemy. Now, when I hear this, and most likely when Lewis wrote this, keeping in mind that he wrote it during World War II, he was thinking of the French resistance. There's a difference. We are not called to operate in secret. We are called to operate in public. Amen. We are called to operate openly, boldly, proudly. We are not called to put our lights under a bushel basket, but to let them shine for everyone to see. That our lights may be lights which ignite others. That others may become aglow with the light of Christ. So we are all called to operate publicly, to not be some clandestine operative, but to move in the daylight. Christ calls us to examine our hearts, to make sure that we are not weighed down with carousing and drunkenness and the cares of this life, lest that day come upon us unexpectedly. For it's going to come as a snare on all those who dwell on the face of the earth. Watch, therefore, and pray. This is how we're called to be ready. We're called to watch and pray. Now, this doesn't mean that we're called to patrol the internet. It means we're called to watch our own hearts and our own consciences. It means that we're called to pray for ourselves, for our others, that we may be counted worthy to escape all these things. And St. Paul tells us in his letter to the Thessalonians, may the Lord make you increase and abound in love to one another, just as we all do. May love overflow in you. May it abound in you. That he may establish your hearts as blameless in holiness before our God and Father at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ with all his saints. This isn't just so you can be wonderful and happy and full of love, but it's so that you can be blameless before him, so that you can stand boldly on the day of his coming in glorious majesty. We talked about how our worship isn't just in this room, but we worship God all the time. Our worship is our entire lives, and we're either worshiping him well or we're worshiping him poorly, but we are always worshiping him. This is a time and a season when we are especially mindful of that. When we are especially mindful that we are called to prepare ourselves for when he comes again in his glorious majesty. We are called to be mindful of our witnesses to those around us. We are called to watch and pray and to be abounding in love. Not so that we can have a great celebration in 4 weeks, which is wonderful and a tremendous blessing that God bestows upon us, but so that when he ultimately comes, when he finally comes and sets all things right, not only can we stand boldly before him with hearts that are full of his love, but we can stand with as many people as we might possibly stand, because we have made the best witness of our lives that we could possibly lead, because we have done the best that we could to lead holy lives that lead others to him. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen. Hey, this is Father Scott Loco with Church of Messiah. Thanks for watching our video. If you enjoyed it and you got something out of it, please click the like button below. And also, you can click the subscribe button to get notifications in your inbox when we post other videos in the future. You can click the little bell below and you'll get notifications also. So do that, and we'd appreciate it. So thanks. God bless you. We appreciate it. Pray for us, and we'll be praying for you. God bless you.